to see this race back to where it belongs.
Yep.
We've lost too many of our great Australian staying races, but the 2 Million's put this back on the map.
Penglo Pavilion was in an Arc de Triomphe 3-4 years ago.
Ran 5th to Treve.
Yeah, he did.
You know, that
who's the Winx of Europe at that
that's
stage.
right. That form puts him in the race that we've just witnessed. So if he's anywhere near that form,
Polarization was scratched last Saturday.
he might be the forgotten horse. Maybe we're forgetting him, and he was well fancied last week.
And Darren Weir's done a mighty job with Big Duke.
6 kilo weight drop, hard to beat.
Yeah, he's in great form. So Darren Weir, the trainer of Big Duke, can he get that Group 1 in Sydney's with Simon O'Donnell?
Darren, the Duke, you couldn't have better form going into a Sydney Cup, surely.
Well, everything looks, that side of it looks right, Simon, but obviously the two little queries are the backup and I guess you got to run the trip, which he's never been over before.
Track not a query. He's won on good right through to heavy.
The track's not a problem. Yeah, the gib in the ground's probably a little plus, so yeah, that side of it's good. Horse seems great. Just got to get him to switch off from a nice barrier and ride him to run the trip, and the weight drop's a big plus, I think. You know, dropping from 58 to 52, that's the big plus from our end.
Where's the perfect spot to ride him to run the trip?
Oh, well, look, top 10, but you know, somewhere between 6th and 8th, I guess. But you know, looks like there's a bit of genuine speed in it. So don't think he wants to be stalking the speed. Probably just a pair back off them, sort of 6th, 7th, 8th would be ideal.
Look forward to maybe another trophy in the cabinet.
Well, I wish it was that easy, but I'm happy with the horse.
He's a great character. The Chairman's, he was pretty decisive there. He got the Manion on protest, but in the Chairman's, he was a big winner, wasn't he?
He was good, and under that weight scale of 58, drops to the 52 today, and very good. And the Baron of Ballarat, you'd like your horses to be as relaxed as him. Not a lot worries him.
Absolutely. He'd handle Winx pretty easily, wouldn't he, the Baron of Ballarat? But look, he was powerful here. I mean, it was a good, strong win. It's just, he has been up for a long time, and he keeps on running one, and you wonder if he might get to the end of it at some stage.
Darren has an unbelievable knack of doing that. He swaps his horses between his Ballarat base and his Warrnambool base. They rejuvenate. He keeps horses up for 12 or 18.
Jessica, it's going to be a truly run race because of those two international horses, isn't it?
It sure is, and they've made quite clear that they want this to be a test of stamina. We know Penglo Pavilion, he goes best when he can go out in front, dominate things, and not really be hassled by anybody else. The only small query is, I think often Europeans think that they need to make these Australian 2-mile races or a test of stamina. Do you remember when the 3 Aidan O'Brien horses went forward that day? Small query whether they can do a bit too much, and that opens it up for something coming from behind.
Well, that's the query. Will they go too hard in front, so the likes of Big Duke and a Sign, who's just going to sit off this hot speed, have the last crack at them? They get in quite well with weights too. Big Duke won't know himself with the 6 kilo drop, and he's presenting quite well in the mounting yarders, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but it depends how hard they go in front.
It does. I can't wait to have a good look at these two Charlie Appleby horses. We know how well his runners went in the spring, and I think these two could go fairly well too.
Jessica, look left now and you'll see Penglo Pavilion. He's going around there. So what's your first impressions there of him?
He looks well, Bruce. The thing with these two horses is that they're having first run for a very long time, so they need to look fit. We've seen them, I've been watching a bit of their work out at Canterbury, and they've both been going very nicely, and really it's just whether Charlie Appleby's managed to get them where they can win first up. Don't be afraid, European horses can win first up, especially off a long break.
And Jessica, we're just seeing the Cesarewitz trial. Is that reasonable form for this?
Oh, that's very good form for this, and more the style that he did it in. He went to the front that day, set a solid tempo, and just kept kicking at the end. He was going to go to the Cesarewitz, which is the big 2-mile 2 race at Newmarket, but they went to a Group 1 in France instead, and things didn't really go his way.
Simon, let's start with who shot the bum, and what a warrior. 3 Melbourne Cups he's been in, 2 Sydney Cups, he's won an Auckland Cup, he's a beauty.
He is, Bruce. 3rd in the Melbourne Cup, Sydney Cup, 2nd in the BMW. His 3 runs in have been very good. Now, he handles all conditions, which is terrific. He's just got to carry the top weight with the 57 this year. He's got the perfect gate. He'll give you everything he's got, this horse.
Simon, this time last year, Libram was Big Duke. He was doing exactly what Big Duke has done this year, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was 2nd last year, but that was with 51.5 kilos. And, Bruce, I thought he was going better because he'd won 3 in a row leading into that. This year, he's struggled. He's really struggled in the heavy tracks and the conditions, so he's not going quite as well. So, you know, he was... I'm happy to leave him.
I reckon our Moonquith could be a shock here. His Melbourne Cup run was terrific. His Caulfield Cup run was 4th. I thought at Mornington he showed some improvement with 60 kg. I'm not ruling him out. I actually think he's the best outsider in the race. Simon Talley, he was third in the Turnbull behind Hartnell and Jamaica. That's pretty good form. Can he transfer that to 3,200?
Well, he's a 4-year-old on the way up, Bruce. He settles beautifully. I loved his ride. Andrew Mallion take a bow with his win in the Mornington Cup. And, you know, he's one of these horses that's on the way up. Tommy Berry, the 55 kilos. I think he's a 3,200-metre horse because of the way he relaxes. He's a fresh horse on the scene, and the Victorian horses running on the drier tracks and then coming to Sydney seem to have an advantage. That might help him. He's my best roughie.
Cheska Lloyd Williams has a great habit of winning this race. Assign was impressive in the Saw. Does it worry you that he was way back in the Melbourne Cup?
Yeah, well, you could say there is a small query at him at the distance, given that Melbourne Cup run, and we know he goes well over 2,000 metres like he did in his last start win. My query is a bit on the form of that race. He beat Astronomus and Single Gaze, and he'd have to lift on that to win here.
Well, Lloyd Williams had chance to dance until about a week ago. He sold for $260,000 at a chairman's sale here. He was fourth in the Adelaide Cup. It was a solid run because he had a fair weight, but it would be a shock, I think, for him to win. So, Simon, we come to the favourite. Can he do the big treble here in Sydney? The Mannion Cup, the Chairman's, and now the Sydney Cup.
Throw in the Launceston Cup as well, Bruce. He is peaking on fitness and on looks. Now, all he has to do is back up from his Chairman's win there last Saturday. Carried 58, dropped 6 kilos to the 52. Perfect. And you know what? He's drawn the right barrier with Craig Williams on board. He's going to get that soft run in this genuine speed with the 2 international horses in which we were talking about prior. He's lovely and relaxed like he was here last Saturday, and there's no excuses whatsoever. He's sweating up a little bit in the flanks there, but I just wanted to see him nice and bright and stepping out like that. He's the one to beat.
Protest dismissed in the Queen Elizabeth. Hartnell holds second place. And it's miraculous. 10 years ago, Gallic won the Adelaide Cup for Lloyd Williams, came here and won this race. Could he do it today?
I'd have to say no, Bruce, but trying to line up his form is tricky because 2 starts ago he won the Adelaide Cup, and then last start he was last in the Mornington Cup, so go figure. I have to say, on looks, probably the least good-looking horse in the field. Funnily enough, he is incredibly well related. He's a half-brother to Ruler of the World and Duke of Marmalade, but he really doesn't catch the eye on looks.
Gee, that is good breeding. Mr. Impatience, look, he's a good 2-mile. He won the Wellington Cup in 2016. He won a Queensland Cup back in 2015. He gets the trip, but I don't think he's going as well at the moment. I think he'd be a roughie.
It probably lacks the class, you'd feel.
Yep. Cheska, now Penglai Pavilion. We saw the Cesaro, which, I mean, does he impress you with it looking at him today?
Yes, he does, Bruce. Interestingly, these horses are coming out of a European winter. Well, actually, they have been in Dubai, so they never really would have got a winter coat as such, but they've come here looking incredible. Their coat is absolutely gleaming. And does he look fit enough to run 2 miles first up? That's a question. I think he does, and he's a beautiful-looking horse. He's by Monson. Remember, Monson, the sire of Fiorente, the sire of Protectionist, an incredibly good stallion of stayers. He's got the right man in the saddle, Karen McAvoy. Charlie Appleby says this is the guy who wants to pilot this horse because he knows how these horses can stay. You can go out to the front, rate him nicely, and he should just win.
And the other aspect is he's got the right weight. He's only got 52 kilos. If we race this in Europe, he would expect to be giving weight to some of the horses he's receiving weight of. He ran 5th in an R class horse.
Well, Kinema Richo, he gave Zach Purton a terribly hard ride last start. He was impressive on Cup Day over 2,800 in a lesser race, wasn't he?
He certainly was. Now, the earmuffs are going to be the key to this horse, Kinema. Forget the last 4 starts we've seen from him. This is the trip that he's needed. He gets the earmuffs. If he can settle in the run, he could be a blowout, a little like Chris Waller did with Grand Marshal a few years ago when he won at about 40-1.
Pentathlon was 9th in the Melbourne Cup and 3rd in the Moonee Valley Cup last spring. That's good form, but he didn't run very well in the Auckland Cup and he's a long way behind than the Chairman's. Not for mine. And Vonga Mas, look, he's a good horse. He hasn't won in Australia. 2nd in the Mornington Cup. He ran 8th in a Caulfield Cup. 2nd behind Francis of Assisi, beaten 10 lengths, albeit in the Queen Elizabeth. Not without a chance, he'll go forward. And Cheska, I asked Malcolm McLaren, Lloyd Williams' racing manager, when's the last time a horse won the Sydney Cup first up? He went back to 1910. He couldn't find any of them. That's what they're trying to do today, these 2 horses.
Yeah, absolutely, Bruce. But that doesn't bother me when you're talking about international horses coming here. We know that they can get them fit to win first up. We saw it in the spring. Charlie Appleby knows what he's doing. And this guy, Polarization, he's had quite a few breaks and then run well off off breaks. Physically, he's an impressive-looking horse. He's pretty tall, and he's very, very long. You could almost fit a couple of Corey Browns on him there. His form's not very easy to read. He's got that second in a hurdle race, which apparently he didn't particularly enjoy, and the second at Epsom was good because that's a tricky track, and having the physique he has, you wouldn't think he'd handle that track. I expect him to go forward with Penglai Pavilion, and it wouldn't surprise me to see them quinella the race, especially with the lightweight he's got.
Let's go to another one of our experts, James Jordan, the form analyst. How do you read it, James?
Yeah, look, I think Big Duke's just the box ticker here. He handles Randwick, he's won on the wet, he's got 52 kilos, and he should find a good spot in the run. So I think he's definitely the horse to beat. The internationals, I actually find it hard to line them up. So what I tend to do is rely on the market. And he's been 10 into 8, so there's the wisdom of crowd sort of approach, and he's certainly been solid, so they think he can win, and I won't disagree, but I think Big Duke's the best of the locals.
Pete, who did you like?
Big Duke.
Okay, you're with Big Duke, the Baron of Ballarat, Darren Weir from Pete Moody. So how'd they go through the tunnel for the swept Sydney Cup? As we look at the dividends from the Queen Elizabeth for Longines, it was a protest dismissed, so Winks and Hartnell, Hartnell again behind Winks. He's part of the Winks story, isn't he? Sense of occasion world name, because that's what it was today. Winks absolutely delighting as we get to the $2 million Sydney Cup.